Welcome to the Priestmead Primary School Parent Partnerships Online Safety at Home session. I'm glad that you could join us to talk about this very, very important topic. Have you ever said to yourself, kids know more about technology than I do? This is a very common phrase that we hear from parents because obviously technology has changed a lot since we were young. So it's really important to understand that technology is changing at a ever increasing rate, and it's very important that we can keep up with it, or at least keep up with the strategies that the children can use to ensure that they're safe online. So technology over the years has taken less time for people to become very familiar with lots of different medias. So for example, to reach 50 million users, it took the radio 38 years to reach that usability. However, Facebook, YouTube, it's taking under 4 years. It took a year to reach 50 million users. Angry Birds, the game being able to be played online and on an app, took 35 days to reach 50 million users. Pokemon Go, one of the most recent online games using geotagging, it took 14 days to reach 50 million users, which just shows us how incredibly fast technology can move and the number of people that are accessing online games at this day and age. So of course there are positives to allowing children to use the internet, and we want to focus on those because internet will be a significant part of their lives. So it's really important that we embrace those positives and use them to our advantage. So online games can enhance teamwork and creativity. In the age of AI, artificial intelligence, it's really important that we do build the skills that these children will be using in their future jobs, some of which do not even exist yet. So online games can help to build their teamwork skills, if they're playing the right online games, of course, and their creativity as well. So they might find a particular area that they really, really enjoy, and who knows, that could even influence their future career. It can add to the child's store of knowledge. There are many websites, many games that of course help children to develop their understanding of the world. Not only their process knowledge of adding and subtracting or times tables, but also their inquisitive nature. So they can access information as soon as they even have a question, they can find out the answer, which of course is going to grow their knowledge ever faster. Households with computers perform better academically. Because of this access to information, the children are able to learn even quicker. They're able to gain information faster, which allows them to move on with their learning quite quickly. And it improves both visual intelligence and hand-eye coordination. So using these online games, we need to use them to our advantage. That can develop their understanding of the world, as well as those very important motor skills. There are, of course, negative impacts of technology, and that's what we need to be able to control or limit, of course. So in terms of sleep cycles can be affected by the blue light from screens. You know, if you are lying in bed on your phone, of course, that light is going to stop you from being able to sleep properly. It overstimulates your senses as well, so that can mean it takes longer for children to fall asleep, and that really can make it very difficult for them to concentrate the next day, which of course means less attention at school, less focus, and makes it more challenging for them to learn new concepts. And with less sleep, there's less embedding of their current knowledge in their long-term memory. So that is a very, very negative effect of using technology prior to sleep, or having that interrupt their sleep by having their phones on loud and being contacted. We find that potentially attention spans are quite short due to the ever-changing gaming world. So it's important that we limit the amount of time that children do spend on those, just to give them a healthy upbringing. We want them to be able to show empathy and to understand how others are feeling, so making sure that they can take the time to do that as well is really important. So it's important that they have a range of experiences as a child, not purely online or in front of screens. Now, there are many key life moments, and we have a little timeline here that you can have a look at from the age of 4 to approximately 16. So at the top you'll see this is the key life moments for children, and underneath the timeline is more for parents. So focused on a couple of particular areas here. So Between the ages of about 5 and 7, 67% of children are online, and their average time online is about 8 hours and 42 minutes, which is quite a large amount of time when you think about the small hours that they have at home after school, in the afternoons, or amongst different activities on the weekend. So the children are online from a very young age, which shows us that we really need to make sure that we are supervising the children and preparing them to be safe when they are online. By the time they get to the age 10 to 11, phone ownership has risen probably to about 43%, approximately, research has shown, which means that children have their own devices with them the majority of the time. So they have access to technology without consistent parent supervision. So we need to make sure they are prepared and they can behave appropriately online, and that they have the strategies for if something happens online that they don't feel comfortable with. So at around the ages of, if we look under the number line now in the parent section, between 8 and 11, 68% of parents think the benefits of the internet outweigh the risks, which is excellent. However, we need to make sure that parents are aware of what those risks are, because about 41% think that the child knows more about the internet than they do. So it's really important that parents are up to date with what their children are doing, and that they feel that their children are equipped with the skills to stay safe. Between the ages of 10 and 11, parental concerns around online bullying increase. So as children are using technology more frequently, they moved on to secondary school, where potentially they have a number of different teachers, they have different new friends that they're meeting, there are older children around. But online bullying, the opportunities have increased. So it's really important that we can work with parents there. So of course there are risks online, and we narrow those risks down to the 3 C's. So they include content, contact, and conduct. So there's a number of subsets there that you can see on the left, and then these are some of the areas that, of course, the children are at risk of. So, of course, risk is not the harm. We can be riding our bike and there is a risk, of course, but there needs to be positive action that can limit the risks becoming harmful. So when you're riding a bike, of course you ride, if you can, on the footpath and not on the road. You cross at the lights so it's nice and safe. You wear a helmet. You do practice with your parents before you're allowed to ride your bike on your own. And it's the same with the internet. So there are risks online, but we can put procedures in place and precautions in place to limit those risks from becoming harmful to the children. So these are 5 really important points. We need to understand the risks, and the parents need to understand the risks, and children do to an age-appropriate extent. The children need to be able to communicate regularly with their parents and, of course, with their teachers at school. Number 3, we need to keep the risks in proportion. So considering ages, how responsible children are, all of those different aspects we need to consider when we are allowing children to use the internet. We need to agree helpful mediation strategies, so allowing a conversation between you and your child and the school as well in partnership to make sure that there are strategies in place to keep them safe, and develop coping strategies that foster resilience. So if something does happen online, how we can move forward from that and how we can learn from those situations. So first we're going to focus on dealing with content risks. So content really refers to the child as a receiver of mass production. So what is online? So we've got 2 different sections that we're going to talk about. What you can talk to your child about, and then the top tips and tools to use. So this information is produced on internetmatters.org, which is a very supportive website of parents and children using the internet. So what you can talk to your child about is they can come and see you if they see something that upsets them online. So if they've seen an image that upsets them, or they've seen words that upset them, then encourage them to come to you and make that a really safe environment for them. Make sure that it's not they're being told off for the sites that they have accessed. Of course, that is a discussion that needs to be had, but make sure that they feel comfortable to come and see you, or come and see one of their 5 trusted adults like we talk about at school. So whether it's they come and see their teachers, and then teachers can help them to have that conversation with you. You need to be realistic about what they might see online. So of course there are always risks. We can put lots of filters in place for inappropriate content. However, some things they can potentially slip through the cracks. So be realistic. Understand that there are risks, so ensure that you've talked to your child about what those risks might be and what they should do if something happens that they don't feel comfortable with. And how to respond to the content. So, what will the child do if they see something that they know is inappropriate online? Will they close the website or app? Will they talk to their trusted adult immediately? Making sure that they're not going and showing that to all the other children around and then coming to you, making sure that they do that immediately. So have those steps in place with your child about what they can do. Our top tips or tools to use for making sure that children are safe at home is to ensure that you have parental locks on your home internet. So whether that's your broadband or your little your Wi-Fi, making sure that you have those parental locks. You can get advice about that from school. We have our tech crew that can help you with that if you're unsure about how to do that for your particular internet service. Ensure that content locks are on your home networks as well, so making sure that there's certain sites that can't be accessed or certain content that is restricted. Encourage them to use safe search sites. So there's an image here of Kiddle.co, which is a great alternative to Google and Google Images. It's produced by Google, but it's child appropriate, and they put their own filtration system in there. And then, of course, YouTube for Kids as well, so that eliminates a lot of inappropriate YouTube clips, but of course all of this needs to be used still with parental supervision. And a classic top tip is to keep the internet use in a family area, which means that you can monitor their use a little bit more and the children are aware that you are supervising them on the internet. So putting it in a family area, a family room, will just make sure that you can keep an eye on what your child is doing when they are online. So dealing with contact risk. So contact is the child as a participant in an adult-led activity, potentially. But it's who they are contacting and who can contact them. So making sure that it's not, that children know that people can contact them on whatever site they're using. And if they are contacting others, the procedures in place there. So all of these games, these current games and apps are, the children can contact or be contacted by people that they do not know. And that is something very, very important for parents to understand. Any game that your child is playing, you need to be aware of whether they can be contacted by strangers or whether they cannot. Now, a lot of these games, they do require people to add them using a username. However, that username, can be found by people. So it's really important that you're aware of what your child can do on each of these games or apps. So these are not the only games that can be where children can be contacted, but it's important that you are up to date. So if your child is really enjoying playing Roblox at home, Google Roblox, right? Can children chat on Roblox? And that then will give you information about what your child is doing online. Then potentially you can put parental blockers on those sites and those the chat options of those sites. However, Roblox, Minecraft, FIFA, Fortnite, Snapchat, Instagram, Musical.ly or TikTok, they are all sites where children can chat, and they don't necessarily have to know the person face to face, or they don't even have to approve that person. The person doesn't even have to send them a request. They can just start a chat, and that can be quite dangerous. So it's really essential that you understand what each game is capable of that your child is playing. So our suggestions here, what you can talk about is that sometimes people hide behind fake profiles for dishonest reasons. So it's important that children know that just because someone has a picture of themselves as an 11-year-old child doesn't necessarily mean that they are an 11-year-old child. That anybody can impersonate somebody else online. So that they should not trust anyone who is online that they do not know. And even in the case that maybe it is someone that they think they know, it could still be someone else impersonating that person. So it's really, really essential that children are not chatting on these sites. You could also talk about agreeing how they will respond to requests from people that they don't know. So you need to set that expectation with them that this is not something that they are allowed to do, and that they should never meet up with anyone that they do not know. Okay, and that they should always discuss with you if someone has suggested that. So our top tools are to set up safe social media profiles, of course, when it's age appropriate. So at the beginning of secondary school, a lot of the apps have a 13 plus age restriction, so really children should not be using those until they are over the age requirement, and making sure that those social media profiles don't share their personal information. So they shouldn't share what school they're at, their full names, their birthdays, where they live, any of that sort of information. A lot of apps and games can locate where someone is. So on Snapchat, for example, there's a map that can find where the person is exactly. So making sure that all geolocation settings on devices are turned off. Using strongest privacy settings on games, and learning how to report, block, or mute. So talk through with your child about where those options are in each website or on each app. So how they can report, block, and mute somebody that they do not want to talk to. Then in terms of conduct, we're talking about the way that your child acts online and the way other children might act towards them. So, dealing with inappropriate conduct, what can we talk about with our children? So, really the most important thing is that they talk to a trusted adult if they experience anything that upsets them. Okay, so if they've received a message from someone that upsets them, that's mean, it's important they can talk to the trusted adult, and the adult can help them to deal with that. It's just like if there's a situation in the playground outside, it's really essential that we're able to coach the children through that, and they can learn through it, learn about it, they can feel like they have shared their problem and that something will be done about it. And of course, the proper consequences can be followed for the person who has done that to them. Of course, we need to talk to our children about thinking carefully about sharing images of themselves or others, so making sure that they understand that they cannot share an image of somebody else without that person's permission, or if it is a child, of course, the parent's permission. They also need to understand that no one should be sharing images that could be embarrassing or hurt the other person's feelings, and that they shouldn't be sharing pictures of themselves online at this stage. And just how to be responsible online, remembering that they are creating a digital footprint. So digital footprint is a term that we use to help the children to understand it's like a footprint in the sand or in the mud or in the dirt, that wherever you go online, that can be traced and can be followed. So it's really important that they understand anything that they post online, anything they share, anything they like or they comment on, there is a record of that, and understanding that that then has consequences as well. So our top tips are to report inappropriate posts or content to the website providers. So if there is a website or someone has done something, you can report it to that particular website. And to think carefully about monitoring apps that identify inappropriate behavior. So making sure that there are apps that you can purchase that will tell you if something inappropriate has popped up online, but also just checking your child's phone. If your child has WhatsApp eventually, making sure that you are just going through and talking to your child about that you should be able to read their messages, especially when they're beginning to use apps and games, or you should be able to read their chats that they're playing when they're playing online, and understanding your child to understand that this is to keep them safe and to help them be safe when they're working online. So it's really up to us as adults to set the example for children, because they do follow the example that is set for them. So here are some tips that we suggest. So turning off your notifications on apps to avoid the constant ping noise that comes up, and so that you can have that time with your family, and that you're setting the example for children that you do not need to have these devices on you all of the time. Buy an alarm clock so you don't have devices in the bedrooms, in children's bedrooms. To keep your phone on silent in your pocket or bag when you pick kids up from school, so showing that you can have that excellent interaction without having to have your devices all the time. So no phones at the table rule, or no phones between 6 or 7 rule, to just ensure that children have that separation from the tech time or the screen time. And having family tech-free days, so visiting the park and the children not taking their devices, or heading to the movie, something like that, where you can spend time together and it's not all about the games or anything like that. And strategies to manage this tech time, so making sure that you're setting a good example, you're talking together about the time that they spend online, so saying, do you think that this is helping you, or do you think this is having a negative effect or a positive effect on you? Agreeing on an appropriate length of time that they can use their device, getting the whole family to unplug and create screen-free zones, and using technology or apps to help manage screen time. So there are a number of apps out there that can monitor screen time on particular devices, and that can help you to regulate that. It happens, we see it a lot at school, where children are coming in, they're tired. They're tired because they've been up late watching movies, or they've been on their games late, or they've even had their devices in their room after their parents have told them to go to sleep, and they're tired, and it really does stop them from focusing and learning in lessons, which is real detriment to them. So it's ensuring that you set those boundaries really firmly and that you show that you can follow them also. So this is, of course, 3 things that we want your child to learn, and this is why the partnership between school and home is really important. The partnership between teachers and parents, so important, because we want to develop the whole child. So being a confident communicator, we want them to be able to speak well with others, face to face, of course, as well as online, through emails, through messages, things like that, as they grow up. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to be able to think on their own. We want them to be able to solve problems. We want them to be able to work with others in a team to figure out how something works. And we want them to be capable tools users. So we want them to be able to use the internet, to be able to use iPads, to be able to code and program and solve problems online. But we want them to be able to do that really safely. And here are some useful resources for you at home. So if you do feel that there is something that you need to report, something significant has happened online and that your child is incredibly worried about or has access to, there is the CEOP website, which stands for Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center. So this is for concerns about how someone has been acting online. You can report it there and it will be followed up with you. There's also NSPCC NetAware. So anytime your child mentions a new game or a new app, you can actually go onto the NSPCC and search for that game or that app. So for example, say Snapchat, your child's come home and says they want to download it, hopefully when they're in high school. You can look on there and it gives you little fact sheets about each website or each game, each app. It tells you what the potentials are there. It suggests parental locks. So it tells you all the capabilities of the app and what you need to look out for. There's also Childline, which is a number that we encourage children to know off by heart. It's a 24-hour free helpline service for children and young people. So if a child does feel unsafe or worried, they can access that. And that includes online worries as well, which of course will become more prevalent as technology increases and children are using it more. And then the final website is internetmatters.org, which helps parents keep their children safe online. So this is where a lot of today's information has come from. It's an excellent website that can really help you. You can subscribe on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube for updates as well, just to ensure that you are staying up to date with the latest information. I hope that this has been helpful for you for keeping your child safe online. We want to make sure that children are the best learners and of course that they are always safe and that they feel that they can discuss any worries with us. So we really appreciate that you've attended this session either in person or online, and that we can work together in a school partnership.